The general didn't know the woman standing guard at the perimeter had already died once for him. He was about to find out that it was supposed to be a routine convoy through the valley. 3 armored vehicles, a skeleton crew, and General Marcus Hale reviewing supply routes near the northern border. The kind of mission you send your second-string soldiers on. The kind where nothing ever happens. Sergeant Lydia Reeves stood at the checkpoint, her right leg, the prosthetic one, planted, firmly in the dust as the convoy rolled to a stop. She'd been assigned perimeter duty. Again, it wasn't officially a demotion, but everyone knew what it meant. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. General Hale stepped out of the lead vehicle, his boots crunching against gravel. He was the kind of officer who'd risen through family connections and strategic desk assignments, not battlefield grit. His eyes scanned the checkpoint with the bored disinterest of someone who'd never truly needed to rely on the people around him. Then his gaze landed on Lydia, more specifically on her leg. The carbon fiber prosthetic below her right knee caught the afternoon sun, its mechanical joints visible beneath rolled-up fatigues. Hale's lip curled. "They're putting wounded personnel on active checkpoints now?" he said, loud enough that his aides heard, loud enough that Lydia heard. "What's next?" "Wheelchairs manning the artillery." His officers laughed, uncomfortable, forced laughter. "The kind that follows orders." Lydia said nothing. Her jaw tightened, a muscle flickering beneath sun-browned skin. She'd lost the leg 2 years ago, in a convoy explosion that killed 3 of her unit and left her buried under a burning Humvee. She remembered the screaming, remembered dragging herself out with one leg shattered beyond recognition, remembered the field medic's face when he realized how much blood she'd already lost. But standing here, listening to this man reduce her, sacrificed to a punchline, she felt something colder than anger. She felt invisible. The general waved dismissively and turned back to his convoy. "Let's move. I want to be back before sunset." Lydia watched them roll forward into the valley. She thought she'd never see him again. She was wrong. 15 minutes later, the radio crackled. Static. Then a voice, panicked, breaking apart. "Ambush. Ambush at grid, Charlie 7. Multiple. Hostiles. We're pinned down. Repeat. We are pinned down." Lydia's blood turned to ice. Charlie 7. That was the valley. That was Hale's convoy dot around her. The checkpoint erupted into controlled chaos. The duty officer was barking orders, calling for backup, but Lydia was already moving. She grabbed her rifle from the rack, checked the magazine with muscle memory older than thought, and sprinted toward the armory truck. Her prosthetic leg pounded. The dirt and rhythmic precision, not a weakness, not anymore. Just another part of her, another tool. "Reeves, stand down. You're not cleared for combat deployment." The duty officer shouted. She didn't stop. Couldn't stop? Because she knew something the others didn't. She knew that rally, knew its sight lines, its cover points, its kill zones. She'd studied it obsessively after her injury. During the long nights when phantom pain kept her awake and guilt ate at her from the inside. She knew exactly where they'd be tracked. Lydia commandeered a supply jeep, her hands steady on the wheel as she gunned the engine. The road to Charlie 7 was barely a road at all, more like a scar carved into the mountainside, narrow and treacherous. Dust billowed behind her as she drove, her mind running tactical calculations. 3 vehicles. Probable ambush positions. Enemy numbers unknown. Extraction points limited. The sound hit her first. The crack and echo of gunfire bouncing. Off canyon walls, a chaotic percussion that meant lives ending and lives fighting to continue. She crested the ridge and saw it. Hale's convoy pinned in a horseshoe ambush, hostiles firing from elevated positions on 3 sides. The lead vehicle was smoking, its front tire shredded. Bodies. She couldn't tell if they were moving. Scattered near the vehicle doors. Lydia stopped the jeep behind cover and assessed. The ambushers had done it perfectly. Classic killbox. The convoy couldn't advance, couldn't retreat, and return fire from their position was nearly useless against enemies shooting downward from rock formations. But they'd made one mistake. They'd assumed no one was coming from behind. Lydia moved. Like water flowing downhill, fast, purposeful, following the path of least resistance. She circled wide, using terrain she'd memorized from maps and satellite photos during her recovery. Her prosthetic leg found purchase on rocks that would have twisted a flesh and bone ankle. She climbed higher, quieter, a ghost moving through stone and shadow. When she reached the first hostile position, she didn't hesitate. 3 shots. Center. Mass. The element of surprise was a weapon sharper than any blade. The enemy fighters repositioned. Confused now, their perfect ambush suddenly vulnerable. Lydia kept moving, kept firing, each shot deliberate and economical. She wasn't trying to win the fight, just to create an opening. Below, she saw Hale's soldiers recognize the shift, saw them rally and begin organized suppressive fire. Then, she heard it, the distinct metallic click of a rifle jamming. Her rifle? Dirt in the mechanism probably kicked up during her climb. She was exposed on the ridgeline, 40 yards from the nearest hostile position, with a weapon that wouldn't fire. For one perfect crystalline moment, Lydia understood she might die here, might become another name on another memorial wall. The thought didn't scare her. What scared her was the idea that Hale, that smug, cruel man who'd mocked her sacrifice, might die because she'd failed. She dropped the rifle and drew her sidearm, moved forward instead of back. Because retreating meant letting them reset, meant more of Hale's soldiers bleeding out in the dirt. She fired as she ran, wild shots, meant to scatter rather than kill, closing the distance in a sprint that felt like flying. Her prosthetic leg hammered against stone, each impact a declaration. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I'm still alive. The hostiles broke. Not because she defeated them, but because nothing in their tactical playbook accounted for a one-legged soldier charging uphill into gunfire with a pistol, and the kind of fury that comes from being told you're less than whole. They scattered into the rocks, melting away as enemy forces do when the cost of staying becomes higher than the value of the objective. Silence fell like a curtain. Lydia stood on the ridge, breathing hard, her prosthetic leg steady beneath her. Below, the convoy was moving again, soldiers emerging from cover, tending to wounded, securing the perimeter with the frantic efficiency of people who'd just survived. Something they shouldn't have. General Hale climbed out of his vehicle. He looked up at the ridge, at her. Their eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted. He saw her, really saw her. Not the prosthetic, not the injured soldier on light duty, but the woman who'd just saved his life. When the extraction team arrived, Hale insisted on debriefing Lydia personally. He stood in front of her, this man who'd mocked her hours earlier, and his voice was different now. Smaller. Humbled. I owe you an apology, he said, and my life. Lydia looked at him with eyes that had seen too much to settle for easy absolution. You owe me respect, sir. Not for saving you. For serving at all. He nodded slowly, like a man learning a language. He should have known all along. 3 months later, Lydia received her promotion to lieutenant and reassignment to tactical training. Not because she'd become a hero in one explosive moment, but because someone finally recognized she'd been one all along. Hale personally recommended her, his report reading like a confession more than a commendation. She still served. Still trained? Soldiers. Still walked with the slight mechanical whir of her prosthetic leg that some days she barely noticed and some days echoed like thunder. But she walked forward. Always forward. Because courage isn't measured by what you've lost. It's defined by what you refuse to surrender. And somewhere in that dusty valley, the wind still whispers through the rocks where a woman with one leg made herself impossible. To ignore if this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell me what courage means to you. And if you want more stories about people who refuse to quit, hit that subscribe button. I've got more tales to tell, and I'd love to have you along for the ride.